and another one done. So this month we read Wise Blood by Flannery O'Connor, and in short, it was super intense. Flannery O'Connor was a writer from the Deep South. She was Catholic and she had lupus. She died of lupus at the age of 39. And so suffering and this feeling of loneliness is embedded in many of her stories, and it was embedded in Wise Blood. Wise Blood is a story of Hazel Motes, who was a devoted Christian at one point in his life, and he got into the army, lost his faith in God, even though it was very difficult for him to let go of. And something happened in him that turned on the switch, and he was set on making sure that everyone else believed just like him or didn't believe just like him. And so after trying to remove Christ from his life as much as he could, he established the church called the Church Without Christ, in which there are no rules, there are no sins, and as he says several times, I am clean, I am clean. Hello, and we're in July. Sorry, I'm a little hot. It's very hot today. If you'd like to join me, we are reading Saints and Sinners in the Cristero War by Msgr James T. Murphy. It's stories of martyrdom from Mexico. If you don't know about the Cristeros, well, this is your chance to get to know about them. There's a link in the description down below where there's a Telegram group that you can join. It's where we share our favorite passages, favorite quotes, where we motivate each other to read and share our thoughts. And at the end of the month, we get together to talk about the book. So if that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and join. I would love to have you there. And let's get back to the book review. Throughout the story, we follow several characters like Enoch, who's this 18-year-old boy who's a little bit lost, who tries to, be friends with Hazel. And there's also a preacher, a blind preacher, and a girl that Hazel eventually ends up with. Every character in this story is complicated, and their burdens and their suffering is out there. This is not a book that you can sit down and enjoy at the end of the day to forget about life. It pulls you back, it pushes you back into thinking about the important things in life. I have to say, I didn't enjoy reading it, but that doesn't mean it's not good. What I mean I didn't enjoy is because most of the time that I read is at night, right before going to bed. I don't necessarily want a light read, but if you're familiar with Flannery O'Connor, her writing is very dark, very intense, and I kind of equate it to, visually speaking, in my mind, her stories are like seeing a flat line, at the hospital, right, where they have the monitor to make sure that you're alive and that your heart is beating. It's just seeing a flat line, and then the moments of grace come like that, and you see it. And I understand exactly what she's trying to do. She's not for everybody. I find that a lot of people who do like her are those people who lack the faith. I find her writing really cheeky. So as I mentioned, she was from the Deep South, from Georgia, and she was basically the only Catholic, right? Surrounded by Protestants, and I'm sure several non-believers. But the way she speaks through her characters, it sometimes, like I said, is very, very cheeky. The whole premise of this book is that you cannot get away from Christ, right? Hazel Motes, he's trying to push Christ out of his life, push God away from his life, but you can't do that. And if you try to do that, your life will just, you will nosedive into misery. He buys this car, and this car is just a crap car. Complete crap. but he chooses it. He chooses this car. And it's like a metaphor, right? So he chooses the crappiest car, and all it does is give him problem after problem after problem. It doesn't go the way he wants it to go, and that's it, right? That's what it is. When we try to choose our own way instead of God's way, it will always lead into disaster, and that's what Hazel Motes finds. He says several times, like, I'm clean, you are clean, you are absolved of any sin because there's no sin. And the whole time he's trying to force his newfound belief, and it's not working, right? It's not working. It's actually doing the opposite effect. He's realizing that as he's letting go, trying to let go or pushing it away, it's just pushing back at him. At one moment there's another preacher, a false preacher, who tries to preach his church without Christ. He calls it the holy church without Christ. And Hayes immediately says, like, that you're not telling the truth. This is completely wrong. And so he can't get away. He can't get away from the truth. And that's the whole point of this book. Flannery O'Connor is trying to say you cannot get away from Christ, even if you want to. Though I didn't enjoy reading it at night, I really do love how vivid her writing is from the get-go. I pictured it immediately. This would be great if there are any fellow filmmakers out there or any artists. If you read Flannery O'Connor, it's just it's so good. Her writing, the way she describes, I remember there's one point where she describes like a couple had a baby that looked like a cat. The image sticks with you. You know exactly what Hayes looks like. Asa Hawks, yes, the little girl, well, not little, but she's a minor. You know exactly what Asa Hawks looks like. You know what Enoch looks like. They are so well written. The way she describes people is just, it stays with you. In terms of cheekiness, this is what I mean. Hazel Motes is trying to rent a place. And so the landlady says, the woman looked at him thoroughly, and then she looked behind him at his car. What church? She asked. He said, the church without Christ. Protestant? She asked suspiciously. Or something foreign? He said, no ma'am, it was Protestant. And a lot of the dialogue is written with the accent in mind. So when you're reading it, you can really hear the people talking from the Deep South. And another example of her cheekiness, there's this blind man who's a preacher who's talking to Hayes, and he says, I can see more than you, the blind man yelled, laughing. You got eyes and see not, ears and hear not, but you'll have to see sometime. It's just so, you know, I find her so tongue-in-cheek. Maybe I should re-explain why I didn't enjoy the book. It starts really low, and it stays that way, and slightly goes down a little more and a little more. It just gets like deeper. But like I said, like that flat line, the moments of grace shoot and come out of nowhere and brings you back down. And I think this is why it's such a success with people who don't believe in God, with a secular audience, because she's able to speak to them as they need. So it might not be, you know, like the cozy little comforting novel. Like, for me, I really like, I've mentioned this before, I really like novels that make you go on this roller coaster. So that's why I really like people like Sigrid Undset. Sigrid Undset, for me, I love her novels, but it's this up and down kind of feeling as you're reading it. Things great, amazing, and then you fall to your face. But this is like, you have a great descent and you stay there, but you slowly go down and down and deeper, and then shooting up and seeing the grace here and there. And I find for those who don't believe in God, this is like a way in. She's shouting at those people. It reminds me a lot of David Lynch movies. If you've ever seen them, they're really weird. There's this atmosphere that's very intense, and characters are a little off, but real. Here, like, all the characters are real. I kept thinking of Tim Burton's Big Fish as well. The characters and this universe, although that one's a little happier than the book. So I'm pretty sure I would have enjoyed this a lot more when I was atheist 10 years ago. I'm not saying if you're Catholic you won't enjoy it. I think it's a taste. I will try and give her nonfiction a go, because I heard that if you read Flannery's nonfiction, you understand or appreciate her fiction a lot more. I think there is a place for this. There's a reason why, you know, the people that love her really love her and the people that really hate her really hate her. But I think there's room for this. I think I shared this recently in my last podcast, saying that I was talking to my priest about a friend, and he said, you know, like, God speaks to people. When Jesus came, he adapted to you, and how he spoke to Nicodemus was different from how he spoke or didn't speak to Pontius Pilate. And this is a great example. It is not for everybody, but to those it speaks to. And Flannery O'Connor, she's such an interesting human being, because she was sick a lot her whole life, and she was surrounded by people who didn't believe in the Catholic Church. She was one of the few, and so that must have been very isolating, and so you can see that a lot in her book. I do recommend it. Like, I think you should just give her a try. She is the kind of writer, I think, that if you don't like her the first time, you need to reread her a little bit later on. She's intense, but she gets her point across, and I think she is great for those who need to be shouted at, yelled at, and saying God exists, and he's there in your life in the darkness. He's not letting you go. God, at the very end, the ending, I got more invested in the story when this false preacher near like more than halfway through the book comes and preaches for Hazel Motes. From then on, I was more invested in the story, and I really liked how the story ended, because it just shows you that you can't get away. You cannot get away from God, no matter how much you do, and it kind of goes full circle, and you will see that whenever you finish the book. Let me know what you think about Wise Blood. Is it one of your favorite books? Have you tried Flannery O'Connor? Is she just too hard? Is she overrated? I don't think so. I think it just depends on the person reading it, and she's not for everybody, but she is for those who really need someone to shout at them. Anyways, that's it for me, and I shall see you in the next one.